As the proverb goes, anxiety and thankfulness cannot reside in the same dwelling. Let's talk about Newcastle city centre, a beautiful place to walk through, whether it's on a quiet, rainy day, or whether it's on a lively, ambient day. Newcastle city centre and its wider area actually demonstrates that Africans, as with many other diverse groups, have not only lived, visited and contributed to the region, but that their lives are actually embedded in the very fabric of it. I feel like I want to stir a little bit of curiosity and a sense of pride in Newcastle's rich and diverse past and present. Let's go. And a shout out to the Zimbabweans that are singing beautifully. Siyaya Arts. We've done a few shows and a few open airs out in Gateshead and in the city centre, just like here. Charles Udoh Minto. Charles Udoh Minto Sr. was a Nigerian champion boxer. He was born in 1893, died in 1960. He established the International Coloured Mutual Aid Association in North Shields, offering social welfare and employment opportunities to African and Caribbean residents, and a hostel for seamen of African descent. He received an MBE in 1949 for his activities. Then you had Elliot and Connie Yabantu. Elliot Yabantu was a freedom fighter in South Africa. He and his wife Connie escaped to the UK in 1976, and they settled in the UK in the late 70s, but they made Newcastle their home in 1983, making their home a community hub. Elliot became a community worker at the Family Service Unit, Newcastle, and Connie was a nurse tutor in Durham. Connie was awarded a community championship in 2002 for her work with refugees. Elliot, with Runda Hlalo, founded the Black Youth Movement in 1987, uniting South Asian and African youth against racism. The Yabantu set up a charity which helped build schools and supply water in rural South Africa. Lindy Delaphenha, or Lindy Delaphenha. Lindy was the first Jamaican professional footballer in England and the first black player for Middlesbrough Football Club in 1950. He scored 93 goals in 270 appearances. He introduced coverage of international football to Jamaica and was posthumously awarded the English League Championship medal.
Picture the year 1949. The English football scene was set ablaze by a man named Lindy Delaphenha, a winger, a trailblazer and a Jamaican. Yes, you heard it right. Lindy Delaphenha, the first Jamaican to win the English Top Flight League. Not once, but twice. Back-to-back titles in 1949 and 1950. And guess what? Those are still the only league titles that Portsmouth has in English football. A pioneer, Delaphenha carved the path for Jamaican footballers on foreign soil. His legacy, etched in the annals of football history, is a testament to his skill, tenacity, and determination. So the next time you see a Jamaican footballer making waves abroad, remember Lindy Delaphenha, the man who started it all. His name, his legacy, forever unforgettable.
You had your ups and downs, you know. As usual, even way back then, race business came into it. And you know, you were called names. Even in that era, the crowd was very harsh.
What were some of the names they would call you?
Oh, go home nigger boy, go home back with banana, and so forth and so on.
How did that affect you?
It didn't affect me because I used to laugh at it and throw back things at them, and they would laugh, and they found it very funny.
When you say throw back things like what?
Well, I can't tell you.
Then you had Daniel Kofi Lartey. Daniel was born in Accra, Ghana in 1930. He was a boxer in Ghana, and in 1950 he stowed away on a British ship, hiding in the cocoa containers. Such was Lartey's personality that when discovered, the captain gave him a job and negotiated for him to rejoin the ship after he had spent 2 weeks in jail in Australia, as he had no papers. He settled in Cardiff in 1951, where he both started a family and became a professional boxer. His boxing activities saw him travel with Europe's largest boxing fair, Ronnie Taylor's travelling boxing ring, to Ireland and across England, including to the Hoppings Fair in Newcastle. In 1959 he moved to Newcastle, where he married, had 5 children and supported local youth clubs and African societies. He actually greeted Muhammad Ali at the West End Boxing Club in 1977 with the traditional Muslim greeting. Ali was impressed and held on to Lartey's hand, possibly surprised to receive a Muslim greeting by an African man in Newcastle. Lartey had several jobs after boxing, including being a plasterer. He regularly attended the reggae nights at the Hoochie Coochie Club in Newcastle, where he was pampered by the staff and fellow dancers with free drinks. He would dance to his favourite tune, Bob Marley's The Three Little Birds, with the biggest smile on his face. Universally described as a true gentleman, Lartey was humble, unassuming, devoted to his family, and always saw the best in people. He died in 2020, leaving behind a legacy of kindness and generosity. Ira Aldridge, who between 1807 and 1867 was actually born in the USA and was famous for his performances at Othello. Also played comic roles to packed audiences in Alnwick, Berwick, and Newcastle. The Berwick Advertiser called him the best actor of colour who had ever appeared on the British stage. Who was from a wealthy Jamaican family and appeared with Carlisle Theatre Company between 1942 and 1944. Pauline Henriques was actually a BBC broadcaster and the first black actress to appear on British television in 1946. She was the first black woman magistrate in the UK. Once upon a time there was an African choir in Alnwick. The choir successfully toured Victorian England in 1891, featuring Christian and African hymns. Their audiences included Queen Victoria. The 16 members included Charlotte Massaquoi and Eliana Kliniwe, social activists and principal figures in the South African National Congress. Ida B. Wells was born enslaved in the US in 1862. She became a teacher and journalist and was awarded the Pulitzer Prize posthumously in 2020 for her campaigns against the lynching of black people by white mobs. Her graphic description shocked audiences in England, including in Newcastle in 1893 and Darlington in 1894. Then you had Archie Sibeko, also known as Zola Zembe. He was a book author, a book called A Fighting Union, and he was an ANC activist. And this book, A Fighting Union, was published in 2000, and it was at the time the only historical record of black trade unions in South Africa. Sibeko was actually awarded an honorary doctorate by Newcastle University for his contribution to overcoming racial discrimination. He actually enjoyed his retirement in Tynemouth.
You need to start at school and teach people that, different of colors and so on. It doesn't mean anything. Human being is human beings and so on. I've been around the world. I've been in Britain, I've been in France, I've been in America, I've been everywhere. Particularly, if you are black, you've got a problem. Where I live, in Tynemouth, probably I'm the only black person here. But sometimes I feel uncomfortable because you go to any place here, you don't see black people. Why? 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 Because I suspect that they're not treated as other people are treated. And I say one word is that racism is a scourge of the world, not of any particular country. And therefore we need to fight it wherever it emerges.
Then you had Moses Roper. Moses Roper was a black fugitive, and he published a book in 1837 about the horrors of his life as an enslaved person in America. His lectures about the book in Middlesbrough, Sunderland, and Hartlepool were said to be the first account delivered to British Reform audience. Irene Ighodaro was actually known as Irene Cole before she got married. Irene Ighodaro was the first woman from Sierra Leone to qualify as a doctor in Newcastle in 1944 and managed to practice in Denton Burn, Newcastle. She co-founded the Newcastle-based Society for the Cultural Advancement of Africa. She campaigned for women's rights and education in both Britain and Nigeria. Dr. Beverly Privat Goldstein, coordinator of African Lives in Northern England project, says this: Dr. Irene Ighodaro felt instinctively that all human beings should be treated as individuals and not as representatives of any group. In her sympathy, she transcended all divisions of ethnicity, nationality, and class. Then you had Irene Thomas, or Irene Modupeola Thomas. This lady was a wonderful lady who left Nigeria also in 1947 to study at Newcastle Medical School. She worked at the Royal Victoria Infirmary, also known as RVI, up until 1957. And subsequently she returned to Nigeria to reduce maternal mortality in childbirth and female circumcision. She was awarded the Order of the Niger. Lois, or Lois Bola Jones, and Lois Bola Jones was born in Sierra Leone in 1919. She qualified as a midwife there and trained as a nurse at Wingrove Hospital in Newcastle in 1946 to 1949. She was one of many trainees from Sierra Leone due to the efforts of Robert Wesley Cole. Lois stayed at the Colonial Students' Club in Newcastle when not in the nurses' residence. And then you also had Sylvia Massaquoi. Sylvia Massaquoi was born in Trinidad in 1934, moved to England to study nursing and completed her midwifery training in Newcastle in 1965. She practiced midwifery in Sierra Leone and then in Canada, where she became an obstetrical nursing director and instructor. She established many provincial healthy baby programs and co-founded the first midwifery school in Canada. Louis Offie. Louis Offie was awarded a Victory Medal and a British Medal for his services in World War I with the Durham Light Infantry and the Labour Corps. He was born in Port Louis, Mauritius. He lived in Jarrow with his wife, Sarah.
Paul Robeson, I said. Paul Robeson. No. Robeson.
Paul Robeson was an acclaimed 20th century performer known for productions like The Emperor Jones and Othello. He was also an international activist. The tall, eloquent and highly charismatic actor became one of the foremost interpreters of Eugene O'Neill's plays and one of the most treasured names in song during the first half of the 20th century. He also courted disdain and public controversy for most of his career as a staunch Cold War era advocate for human rights, as well as his very vocal support for Joseph Stalin and the Soviet invasion of Hungary in 1956. Whilst the backlash of his civil rights activities and left-wing ideology left him embittered and practically ruined his career, he remains today a durable symbol of racial pride and consciousness. The great singer, actor and civil rights campaigner visited the Northeast many times between 1940 and 1950. On one occasion, he was given an open-top bus procession or an open-top bus parade around Newcastle city centre. He will primarily be known as an American bass-baritone concert artist, actor, professional football player, and activist who became famous for both his cultural accomplishments and for his political stances. And then you had Robert Ngbaronye, a teacher stowed away from Nigeria to England to fight for Britain in World War II. He worked as an assistant secretary at Colonial House, North Shields, until, despite coloured prejudice, he successfully enlisted in the RAF. And there we go. Indeed, as the proverb goes, anxiety and thankfulness cannot reside in the same dwelling. All the people mentioned here, they were thankful to live life, to be put here on earth, and to not rob the earth of the mission that God has called them to do. So that's my prayer, that's my hope for people watching, that they will be inspired, especially people that look like me, that are often told they are nothing. Always remember that there are people before you that have made the path slightly, or ever so slightly, easier. If you don't know where you're from, can't know where you're going, please like, please subscribe, please comment, let me know how you feel. Blessings. TT.